Leadership is many things, but at a minimum, it's the closing of the gap between talk and walk. These two men here today are the lead sponsor and our original co-sponsor among several others, Senator Portman. He said this thing very recently at the March for Life. He said, "I believe in the fundamental right to life, and I will fight to the death to defend it." Today, you're proving once again that you're closing that gap between the talk, which is important, and the walk, which is vital. So thank you so much for joining in early on and fighting with us.
Well, first, thanks to the groups represented behind me, not just for their great work in pulling together this legislation, and it took a little while, didn't it? But we're there. But also for their work over the years on this issue and, frankly, moving public opinion. I was just looking at some of these charts you have here. The First Lady of New Jersey has to move a little bit here. 64% abortion should not be permitted in the second 3 months. This is after 6 months, so 80% in the last 3 months. That's a big movement and a big shift, and it's come from a lot of things. Lindsey talked about some of them, which is technology, just knowing more, science. But also it's just, people getting the information that they need and then looking into their own hearts. Lindsey Graham has been a leader on pro-life issues ever since he got elected. He does hear the voices of those who can't be heard, and he speaks for them. And I'm proud to stand with him today. He's the original co-sponsor. He's the author of this legislation. We have a great list of people who have co-sponsored. I know it's not all of them can be here with us today, but I'm assuming that's being circulated. And remember, this legislation has already passed the House on a bipartisan basis. So we did take our time before introducing this legislation, trying to work through some issues. I think you'll see among the co-sponsors that pretty much everybody's come together. And I think that's important, that the pro-life groups are together. And again, the work of some of the women behind me here have been critical to that. They've also worked with me on an issue that I think is really important for Ohio and other states. I'm the author of the Child Custody Protection Act. And again, I know there are different points of view on that issue sometimes, but I want to thank the groups here today for working on that issue with us and ensuring that we can at some point help protect young women in Ohio and around the country who are being solicited out of state by doctors to perform abortions without going through the parental notifications that we have in Ohio and other states have, and that people want. Again, the public opinion on this has shifted to help protect the unborn. This legislation, as I'm sure has been talked about, does focus on 20 weeks after fertilization, which by most physicians is the 6th month by standards that are used by most physicians. This is, as Lindsey said, where physicians have identified, based on, again, a lot of good science and technology, that these babies are feeling pain, and therefore the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. For those of you who have been to neonatal units at our wonderful hospitals around the country, we happen to have some of the best hospitals in the country in the state of Ohio, and we do some amazing work with some of these babies who were born extremely premature. And this notion of, the size of a banana, you see these babies, you can hold them in one hand, and the work that's being done is miraculous. And as a father who, went through the process of seeing the ultrasounds and so on, of course, you have a very emotional reaction, mothers and fathers, to this. But to go to these neonatal units and seeing these babies who are born extremely premature, and what can be done now with the advances in medical technology and research is unbelievable. Even a few years ago, many of these babies could not survive. Now they can. So with these miraculous medical treatments available today, these babies can go on to lead productive lives, healthy lives. And I think continued medical advances will enable even more Americans to realize that what we're talking about here is children. So I think this continues, the support that's indicated by some of the polling that's been done by some of the groups behind me continues to grow as Americans are more and more aware of the reality of viability. I also think back in Ohio and around the country, people who may not agree on all the points of view here do agree that abortion should be as rare as possible. And I think this legislation is a step in that direction. I think it's fitting that we're here during the month of November, which happens to be National Adoption Month, because whether we're protecting unborn babies or helping children find a loving home, I think our job here is to protect the most innocent among us, and adoption is certainly an option we ought to all be promoting. So again, I'm happy to stand next to Lindsey and a lot of other great colleagues who are supporting this legislation today. I thank the groups represented in the room today who have worked with us on this legislation and this ongoing effort that I've been proud to be involved with during my entire career to protect the unborn and ensure that indeed those voices are not just heard, but listened to.